Hi, welcome to tonight's free webinar, The Fundamentals of Treating Topical Lacerations in a 45-second time frame, by my good self, Joseph Clifford. Okay, for the legal stuff. Disclaimer. The information contained here in this webinar should not be used as a substitute for the advice of an appropriately qualified and licensed physician or other healthcare providers. Although we have tried to make this as much evidence-based as possible, it still is for informational, educational purposes, as I've said, and the experienced perspective of Joseph Clifford, who is a Cutman of 15 years. Thank you. Content. Lacerations versus cuts, layers of skin, treatment and sequence, wound care and healing times. Lacerations and cuts. So, there's a bit of a dilemma when it comes to the actual name of cut people. Because basically we don't really deal with cuts, we deal with lacerations. Cuts are caused by puncture wounds or stab wounds, as you can see on the picture on the right hand side. So basically cuts are caused by sharp instruments, whereas lacerations are caused by blunt force or trauma, like a punch, forearm smash, elbow, knee, shin or kick. So basically lacerations are caused by blunt force or trauma, but here's the catch. Laceration man or laceration woman doesn't sound as cool as cut man or cut woman, right? Anyway, that's what we're dealing with, lacerations. Layers of skin. So why is that important? Well, a little bit of education never goes wrong, and particularly if you want to get into the game and you're interested in doing and working as a cut person. So just a little bit of education. We're not going to lose the run of ourselves and give you science and chemistry. So we're going to keep this as basic as possible. Layers of the skin. The outermost layer is the epidermis. You'll see it there in the top right hand side of your picture. Now that's the outer layer of skin, and that is responsible for producing new cells, immunity cells, and it also makes melanin. And so the thing about the epidermis is that when that gets split or damaged, then basically it affects the cells which produce immunity cells, which then has an impact in terms of bacterial or infection. Now, when you go down deeper, just underneath that layer, you have the dermis, which brings blood to the skin, makes sweat, has nerve endings, hair growth, and makes oil. But if you look just at the difference in color, the top layer, the epidermis, is quite pinkish in comparison to the next layer down, which is the dermis. And that's the reason for that is because of the small blood vessels that supply this area. So this supplies the blood to the skin. Underneath that, you have subcutaneous, which is a layer of fat. Okay, and that has slightly larger blood vessels, but it's also responsible for a thermal effect in terms of being able to insulate what's underneath, the muscle underneath, but it also works in terms of attaching the muscle itself to the dermis. Okay, so it helps connect the dermis to the muscle, and it has a very beneficial effect in terms of heat or insulation. In terms of heat. So what you see underneath that then is the muscle itself. But just here, see this layer just here, I'm showing you in the center. Okay, so this layer here is called fascia, and it's like cling film. It surrounds the muscle. Once you're down into these layers, the laceration itself is quite traumatic in terms of if you have something this big, in other words, the dead space, the gap in the middle, okay, this big, well then basically you would probably have a combination of venal plus arterial blood vessels after being damaged. There's a good chance that that's after happening, and so basically you may have a heavy bleed. But equally I've seen lacerations like that and they've stopped just down to compression. So, but that may be down to the area itself and the blood supply, etc, etc. I won't get complicated, but anyway, that's the layers you need to be aware of. The epidermis, the layer underneath the dermis, subcutaneous, top left hand side picture, the layer of fat underneath, slightly bigger blood vessels, and again if you look at it, it's slightly more reddish in color. It's kind of purpley at the top in the dermis, and then underneath that you have a layer of fascia. It's not listed, and then muscle underneath that again. You can see muscle there, bottom left hand corner, but in the center. Okay, so let's have a practical look at the sequence itself and how you can best use it. So the only thing that would change is the location of the injury and how you position yourself on the side of that injury. That's the only thing that would change, but the sequence should always stay the same. Okay, always. So we'll just run through this really slowly. So one of the key components is being able to stabilize the head of the athlete. Now you'll see me indicate if the athlete's moving their head right and left and right, okay, or up and down, or maybe if it's MMA and the athlete's sitting in front of you and there's a coach behind them outside of the ring speaking to them, the athlete will naturally turn their head sometimes. So it's key that you're able to stabilize the head. So see the top hand here? That's used to stabilize the athlete's head. Now, if I want to stop the athlete from moving, having my hand on their head is a good indication that I want them to stay still, particularly if they don't speak English, okay? If you're working internationally, some of the athletes you may service may not speak English, so stabilizing the head is key. I'll play it on. Okay. So, clean the area with a damp piece of gauze, but you're never pulling at the area or dragging the area like I showed you in the previous slide. So you're just cleaning blood spatter away so you can have a better look at the injury itself. So, next thing, you need to apply your treatment. Place it over the entire circumference of the wound. And one of the reasons I like using quick aid. Now I'm going to stop there for a second. See my hand position? See where the towel is and it's wrapped around my fingers? So in other words, it's not a hindrance. What I'm not doing is having that towel hanging down over the athlete's face, making it more claustrophobic as such. So in other words, I don't have the towel in front of their face. So that's very important. So you'll see a good professional work and their hands are always 100% in terms of having a free hand to work. You may have multiple injuries and that may not be a choice, but in single lacerations like this one or single wound injuries, you can move your hand around and I can pretty much, if injuries are on the same side of the face, I can actually treat an injury with one hand and keep one hand free. So keep one hand free is essential. Just to clean the area or to grease the area that's not covered by your hand. In other words, where your hand is covering the laceration. So I'll place it on. So again, look where the towel is. You see where the towel is neatly folded? So please don't have loose towels hanging out of your hand, hanging over the athlete's face. Not a good idea. So as I place it on. So once that's done, with the free hand, I can get rid of that towel if I want to and I can grease the athlete's face. See this side, as I've said earlier. But the whole objective right now and the most important thing is where I'm holding my finger and I still have contact with the athlete's head. So I've cupped the athlete's head. Okay, and the reason I've cupped the athlete's head, if the athlete moves, I can move with them. Okay, the beautiful thing again about using quick aid or using that natural product is that it actually adheres to the injury, but when you peel it back, it doesn't pull the blood clot off. It does not pull the blood clot off, so it's a gem to use, and like I said to you, it covers the entire contour of the injury itself. I'll place it on. So once that's all done, you remove your treatment and then you grease the area. So you grease on it and then up rather than down, forcing the grease into the eye. Okay, very important. And then finish off any other contours of the face that you haven't done already. And that should take you no longer than 50 seconds. 5 seconds to mount, 35 to 40 seconds to sort yourself out in terms of applying the treatment, holding it, compressing it for as long as possible. I can't underline the word compress enough. I have seen cut people stop injuries with just a thumb. And what I mean by that, they've gotten in to service an injury and what's happened? Well, basically their treatment or their swabs may have been knocked out of their hands or their piece of quick aid was knocked out of their hands or whatever treatment they were using. And so I've seen a cut man stop a bleed with just a thumb, a scalp wound with just a thumb using compression. I'm telling you, I cannot. It's the backbone of every most treatments for bleeds, topical bleeds, is compression. Sequence. So your sequence is very important. And the reason your sequence is very important is because this now is the cornerstone of everything that you will do as a cut person, the cornerstone. And what I mean by that is quite simply, it's the system that you will use repetitively regardless of where the laceration is. You may change one or two things, but the sequence itself is key to giving consistent treatments which are performance-wise the best that you could deliver within that time frame. So I'll break it down for you. Your approach should take less than 5 seconds. So by the time you mount the ring apron, and I'm going to use the word ring for MMA because the word octagon is on by the UFC, so ring. Okay, I'm going to use the same term for Muay Thai. I'm going to use it for boxing, kickboxing, K1, whatever. So we're going to use ring. So it should take you no longer than 5 seconds to mount or get inside the ring. Positioning yourself, etc. Make the fighter sit down. Not for today's webinar, and I'll tell you the reason some other time. But make the fighter sit down. They're easier to control. And basically, it's just if you have a scalp injury, you're over the top of it. It's a better angle to be at. Apply the treatment with a damp, sterile piece of gauze or towel. Now, if you're using a damp piece of towel, wipe around the injury but not into it, because the towel itself may have dyes. Those fibers may get into the injury and they may cause infection. But let's get back to that damp piece of sterile gauze. Now, the reason you would keep that piece of cloth damp, or if it's all you have is a damp towel, piece of gauze or towel, and you apply it into the injury, the chances are an open wound, a laceration, when you take it away, it will leave the blood clot behind. It won't stick to the blood clot because the cloth is damp. Now, if you use a dry piece of gauze or a towel, if you've ever had an abrasion, a really bad abrasion, in other words, a piece of skin has been scratched or scraped on your forearm or whatever it was, and somebody has put a dry piece of plaster over the top of it and you pull it off and the scab comes with it, well, the same happens when you use a towel. Even though the injury has just happened, the lacerations just happened during the round, already your body's starting to clot. In other words, it's producing clotting factor to stop the bleeding itself. Okay, by the time the athlete sits on the chair, if you take that dry towel and place it into the wound, or a dry piece of gauze, when you pull it away, it will take the blood clot with it. And so basically what that does is then it exacerbates the bleeding. What's your job? Remember, what's your job? You're there to service and help the fighter back to hemostasis or stop the flow of blood. End of. That's your job, is to treat, not to make it worse. Okay, so I'm going to show you a short video on that just over here. We're just going to roll it. So all I want you to look at is the way the towel is used on the injury. He drags it down, pulls it across like so, and I can tell you straight off the bat, that is not a good way to approach an injury to clean it out. Okay, like I said to you, if all you've got is a damp piece of sterile gauze and you place that over the actual laceration injury itself and you use compression and hold that compression for 35-40 seconds, okay, I'm telling you, it's one of the best treatments that you can do in terms of the benefits of compression, and then the clot being damp, it doesn't pull the clot off when you take it away. So you've applied your treatment for 35-40 seconds, and that leaves you with about 5 seconds or so to use the grease, which is petroleum jelly, white petroleum jelly, or whatever mix you use. Some people are using cocoa butter now. So that is a total of 50 seconds away. You'll hear a tap and then you basically leave. So that's the sequence. It never changes. It should never change. When you start to make things complicated, that's when you'll start to fail as a cut person. If you make things complicated, it will fail. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Treatment intervention. Now, what's an intervention? We're actually trying to stem or stop the flow of blood. So we're stepping in. So the fighter or boxer has an injury, and what we're doing is we're stepping in to have a positive impact, and we're making an intervention to have a positive impact and stopping or stemming the flow of blood in the injury, which then complements hemostasis. That's the reason we're doing it. Intervention. Okay, remember, this is now in real time, so we still use the same sequence. You never change it. The only differences would be where you position yourself and where you put your hands, obviously, if you change from left to right or right to left, or standing dead center. So that's the only difference. So we'll just run through it. I'll let you see the tape in real time. So I'm just going to stop it there. So the first thing I'm doing is cleaning away the blood spatter. Very important. But if you look at my top hand, okay, again now I've changed my hand position in comparison to the last video you've seen. I'm stabilizing the head with my hand and I'm pushing the fighter back against the cage so they cannot move their head. But he's took that non-verbal cue. He is a well-conditioned athlete. He's done this before. He's been injured before and he holds his head still. So big up to Eric. So as I play it on. So once I've cleaned it, now what I need to do is get rid of the cloth out of my hand. Okay, the piece of towel. Now, if you notice when I was cleaning, I cleaned around the area but not directly on it or over. In other words, I didn't push that cloth in or around that area. So what I did was clean around it. And again, the cloth is damp. Remember, it's damp. So I'm getting rid of the cloth. I'm placing it in my hand on the top there so I can take my treatment, place it into the injury and compress it for as long as I possibly can. So I'll just roll it on from there. Get rid of the gauze in the hand. Okay, you can see it there. So I'm still compressing that injury. The most important thing is compress the laceration. And you can see that I'm greasing up the other part of the face and then job done. Complete cessation of bleeding. So just stop it there. So it's key to it. Always try to position yourself on the side of the laceration or injury. From there, it's about handling skills, where you put your hands and how you handle the fighter's head. You can give them non-verbal cues if they don't speak English. Eric did, so I could actually verbalize it to them. But equally, I can push them back against the actual octagon itself, or ring, as we call it, just to give them some indication of what I want them to do. In other words, just stop moving, stay still. Treatments. So again, we're going to use the same sequence but on a different area. In other words, the injury is in a totally different area. It's not in the inverted bell, as they call it in boxing, the inverted bell, which is around the eyes and down around the nose and mouth. The inverted bell, it's called. In MMA, those injuries can be in different places because of forearm smashes, because of kicks, whatever. So they can be in different places. Same with different sports. Muay Thai as well. You can use elbows or forearm, and you can use knees or kicks. K1 or kickboxing and stuff like that. So unlike boxing, where the injuries itself is in that shape of inverted bell, those injuries may be in different locations depending on the sport. Now, all I want you to do is look at my hand position as I treat the injury. Just look at my hand position. What's key to it is I'm not blocking the coach off. I'm giving the coach access to the athlete. The athlete can see the coach, a very intimate relationship. I'm a foreigner in that corner, so I'm an alien body in that corner. I need to give them that connection. Let the coach do his thing while I do my thing. A quiet voice in the background, like I said. So I'll just play it on from there. Now, I have to sit him down. The guy is 7 foot tall and I'm a short ass compared to him. So the first thing I do is I clean it off. I get my treatment. I place it over the injury. I'm using compression. But I've now freed up, you can see it, my right hand. Okay, my left hand's on treating. My barrier, my grease is on the back of the hand. Okay, I'm holding that compression over the injured area while I clean off any blood spatter across the chest. Now watch. I need to get rid of that cloth. So the piece of gauze that I have, the damp piece of gauze that I have, I need to get rid of it so I can free up my hand because I want to work. I want to use my hand to work. So basically it's important that I free up my hand. So I've freed her up now. Now I'm going to use both my hands over that area, but again, I'm not blocking access to the coach so the coach can still give water. So I place my hands on either side so the coach can better access that the fighter and give him water. So that's key to it. And then basically what I do then is I apply my grease at the end of that 45-second period. So as you can see, the only difference in terms of the sequence is my hand position and the location of the injury. Keep it simple, folks. I can't reiterate that enough. Keep it simple. Just to recap, the sequence. Approach, 5 seconds. Make the fighter sit down. Apply treatment or damp sterile gauze, preferably damp sterile gauze, or if not, a damp towel. Clean blood spatter away, clear materials from your hands so your hands can work effectively. Apply treatment, hold for 35 to 40 seconds. Then your barrier or grease, your layer of grease as we call it, place that into the wound as a sealant to protect it from the outside environment and as a plug to help stop the bleeding. Okay, never changes. Keep it simple, folks. Can't reiterate that enough. Keep it simple. So, general wound care. Post-fight, post-bout, 24 to 48 hours. So, after the fight, for the first 24 to 48 hours, your job is to keep that wound or injury in good condition. So, some of the things that you can do to help yourself, help the fighter. Again, we're not replacing medical advice. If the fighter has been given information, or if they've been sutured, if it's a smaller wound and it doesn't need sutures, maybe it's an abrasion or a bad abrasion, whatever it is, well then basically you need to ask the healthcare practitioner or the event medical team attending the event what's best practice to take care of the injury. You may know yourself, but just a little bit of information goes a long way. So if you are going to, if the fighter, boxer, is going to make sure that the treatment, because remember, it's your responsibility, it's your face that's injured. Okay, your coach won't be there with you 24/7. So remember that it's your responsibility to take care of that wound or injury. Always wash your hands before you put your hands anywhere near it, or else you can use a 60% alcohol solution. So in other words, hand sanitizer. If you are allowed to shower, remove the dressing and wash with soap and water, but remember to remove the soap after you've had the shower. So in other words, wash it off with water. You may be advised to use petroleum jelly to stop infection or to keep the area moist. Now that may be a situation in terms of an abrasion or something like that. In terms of if it has been sutured, it's probably best kept with some form of plaster over the top of it for the first 24 or 48 hours, or please just take healthcare practitioner advice from your doctor or again the attending medical team. So very, very important. Remember, it's your responsibility, it's your face, it's your scar tissue, and the thing is, don't use them like notches on a gunslinger's gun. It's not a good thing to have your face peppered with lacerations or injuries, or even cauliflower ears. I hear some fighters brag. It's not a good thing, because basically what you're doing is damaging or traumatizing your face, and it may predispose you to more injuries. Healing times. Now the reason I throw this in is because generally speaking, sometimes fighters, boxers, coaches may be in a hurry to leave the event, or maybe not, or maybe there wasn't an event medical team that were there suturing. Maybe they have to go to the hospital. Maybe they've been in the hospital but there's been lengthy queues, or maybe they haven't asked for best information. But basically speaking, I know the doctor or your healthcare practitioner, the physician themselves, or whoever suturing you will give you information in terms of the removal of sutures. In other words, the things stitches or staple removal. Staples are generally more so on the scalp, probably on the torso more so than the face. I've very rarely, ever seen facial injuries stapled. So anyway, healing times. As you can see in the top, you'll see wound location marked in blue on the right hand side of your picture. Wound location, and on the right hand side of that, time until removal. So in other words, the sutures, the stitches themselves, are staple removal. So you see the face has a 3 to 5 day removal time. In other words, when they take those stitches or the sutures or staples out, in comparison to the tops of hands or feet or palms or soles. Now the reason for that, the reason why your face it has a quicker time in terms of removing sutures or staples, is because of circulation. Remember, circulation is key in terms of healing time. So your face has better circulation than other areas of your body. That's simple. So that's simple. I won't get into it, but that's simple. So if you have been sutured or you're being sutured, you need to ask the doctor, when do I come back? And I'm sure they'll give you that advice, but just in general terms. Summary. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Once you walk off that sequence, you can very rarely go wrong. Again, the only difference or differences are the locations of the injury and where you position yourself. Stick to the sequence. Small variants in it, but stick to the sequence. Keep it simple. Try not to do something new when you're actually treating an injury. Do that in practice rather than real time, because doing it in real time may cost the boxer the fight because you didn't get your shit together. Okay, you practice it, then you bring it to the ring, not the other way around. Okay, sometimes you may ad-lib things, you may see things, you may react to that, you have the experience and the skill set to do so, and you'll walk away going, oh, that was something new. How can I best facilitate that injury in future? You go back to the drawing board, you practice, and then if it happens again, an injury in an awkward position where you'd have to stand or position yourself or whatever it is, at least you're prepared for it. You are never the full package, never complete. Always be open to learning. Do not apply dry gauze or towel over a wound. Important, I can't reiterate that enough. I've already told you the reasons why. Compression is key. Compression is key. Compression is key. And last in your barrier. Now you can fool around with barriers. You can mess around. Like I said to you, some people are using cocoa butter now with vitamin E and various other. Or you can use petroleum jelly, white petroleum jelly. That's up to you. So online cut course coming soon. And what I've basically done is, with this video, it's a very small snippet of what we actually did in the online course. So again, we're filming it now at the moment. Unfortunately, we had to stop because of the COVID virus. So basically, gyms and facilities have completely closed down, and we didn't want to expose other people that were involved in this shoot to the virus itself. But again, what I'm doing with the webinars, are giving you small windows into the cut profession itself. And education is key to that. Again, I didn't get this for free. I had to go and research all of this. Nobody wanted to share it with me. I've been blessed to meet one or two individuals over the last couple of years who would be in the same train of thought in terms of sharing it with others. And so that's my thing. In order for us to provide a gold standard for the athlete, the males and females that sit on stills, well, then basically sharing is the only way we can go forward and better our performances. So again, the online cut course is coming soon. Unfortunately, we had to stop. The deadline for it was April, but we'll have to extend that probably to June or July until facilities and everything, June, July, maybe August, life after COVID, huh? I wish you all the very best of health, and I just want to say to you, stay home, stay safe, and take care.